If you stand on the balcony of the luxury condominiums in Collingwood today, you will see a thriving tourist town. But beneath that layer of concrete foundation deep underground lies the ashes of an empire that once dominated the North American ceramics market for half a century. This is not just Canada's story. It is a fragment of the gray picture of industrial decline across the United States and North America, where abandoned factories stand as evidence of a lost golden age. In the 1970s, Blue Mountain Pottery was a massive machine with 170 workers, producing 14,000 pieces every day. From Toronto to London or Sydney, their signature blue once became the decorative DNA of an entire generation. It stood alongside lost American brands names that once shaped the lifestyle of an entire continent. Yet, that greatness is now only part of a tragic corporate history. What was once a source of national pride is now seen as outdated dust collectors at garage sales. This is the clearest expression of industrial destruction, when a massive production system is broken by the forces of globalization, leading to waves of factory closures and leaving behind voids that cannot be filled within society. However, a paradox is unfolding. While the majority turn away in the darker corners of the collector's market, the rarest pieces are being hunted at staggering prices. A brutal disconnect between practical value and historical value. How could a smoothly operating system exporting to 30 countries completely collapse? This was not a quiet death. It was the result of a chain of strategic mistakes, and ultimately a radical decision. The final owner chose to smash all the molds to ensure that this legacy would never be cheaply replicated. Welcome to Industrial Empires. Today we will conduct an autopsy of the tragedy of Blue Mountain Pottery, from a national symbol to factory shutdown and the erasure of its legacy. To understand the collapse, we must first understand the scale of the dominance. Blue Mountain Pottery was not just a local pottery workshop. It was a global export powerhouse. At its peak, more than 60% of its production never sat on store shelves in Canada. It crossed oceans to the United States, the United Kingdom, Germany, and even Australia. They solved a problem that every manufacturer dreams of: industrial production with an artistic soul. Every piece of pottery that came out of the kiln carried a unique fingerprint thanks to the flowing glaze technique, yet it was produced at the speed of an automotive assembly line. This combination made BMP the largest ceramics brand in Canadian history. But behind those record-breaking revenue numbers was an invisible trap. BMP's success rested on three extremely fragile pillars: total dependence on export markets, a single color palette, and an aesthetic tightly bound to the design mindset of the 1960s. They were not just selling ceramics, they were selling a lifestyle. But that lifestyle is a living entity. It changes, it evolves, and it eliminates. BMP created a product that was too perfect for its era, to the point that they forgot when that era passed, their product would become a fossil. Economic analysts often say, what makes you successful today is often the very thing that will kill you tomorrow. For Blue Mountain Pottery, that was its dependence on a weak US dollar and the stability of middle-class consumer taste. They operated their system like a heavy tank, powerful, unstoppable, but extremely inflexible. While the world began shifting toward minimalism and practicality, the kilns in Collingwood kept turning out millions of heavy, glossy, decorative pieces. The first crack did not appear in the pottery. It appeared in the accounting books and in the mindset of a new generation of customers. The seeds of collapse were sown in the middle of the most bountiful harvest. Great stories from Britain or Canada often begin with someone who is not native at all. Blue Mountain Pottery is no exception. Its story begins with Jozo Wider. Born in Czechoslovakia, Jozo was not a ceramic artisan. He was an opportunist with a powerful survival instinct. In 1939, as the shadow of fascism spread across Europe, Jozo and his family fled to Canada. He arrived in Ontario with nothing in his hands but carried a kind of asset that no government could confiscate: the mindset of a man who had nothing left to lose. In the post-war years, Canada was a land of raw opportunity. In Collingwood, Jozo Wider saw something that the locals did not: a mountain called Blue Mountain. While his neighbors saw the mountain as nothing more than a geographic obstacle, Jozo, with memories of the majestic Alps in his homeland, envisioned a future of tourism and leisure. He began building the Blue Mountain Resort ski area. But there was a problem: the ski tourism industry generated income only in the winter. To sustain the system and pay his employees throughout the summer, he needed a secondary product, something that could be packaged and taken home. Immigrants like Jozo Wider and Dennis Tupy brought something that Collingwood's economy at the time lacked: the fusion of refined European craftsmanship and the practical production mindset of North America. They did not build a simple handicraft workshop. They were building a new industry based on maximizing local resources. Jozo understood that to succeed, he could not rely on skill alone. He needed a system that would allow local farmers who had never touched clay before to create works of art after just a few weeks of training. Blue Mountain Pottery was born not from a burning passion for ceramic art, but from a necessity for survival, filling the economic gap of a winter resort. An empire built on the foundation of adaptation and the survival instincts of people who had once walked the line between life and death in war. In the summer of 1948, while using a bulldozer to reshape the ski slopes, a small incident occurred. The machine became stuck in a thick layer of dense mud. Instead of getting frustrated, Dennis Tupi Jozo's talented mold maker stepped down and carefully examined the soil clinging to his boots. With the experience of someone who had grown up in the traditional ceramic regions of Czechoslovakia, Tupi realized this was not ordinary mud. It was mineral-rich clay fine, and with the perfect plasticity for firing pottery. In that very moment, the soul of Blue Mountain Pottery was discovered, not in a laboratory but beneath the steel tracks of a bulldozer. Jozo Wider quickly seized the opportunity. He brought together Dennis Tupi and later Mirek Hamblek, a master of firing techniques. This trio created what became known as drip glaze. The process was remarkably ingenious. They applied a black base glaze, then layered it with a signature teal glaze on top. When the kiln temperature reached a critical point, the two layers would fight and blend together unpredictably. The result was that no two pieces were ever exactly alike. This was their unique selling advantage. Customers received a handcrafted, one-of-a-kind product, yet it was produced on an industrial scale. A compelling contradiction. Let's pause for a moment to analyze the brilliance of this system. BMP did not try to create uniform perfection like British or Japanese ceramic factories. On the contrary, they celebrated uncertainty. Every piece of pottery that came out of the kiln carried its own unique fingerprint of temperature and time. This struck directly at the psychology of post-war North American consumers. They longed for objects with a soul to fill modern homes that were gradually becoming soulless due to mass production. But from a management perspective, this was a masterstroke by Jozo Wider. By turning random flaws into artistic features, he minimized defect rates to the lowest possible level and optimized production speed. Blue Mountain Pottery was not just ceramics. It was the embodiment of survival. It turned the mountain's mud into an empire and transformed refugee workers into legends of Canada's industrial history. Blue Mountain Pottery had a beginning that every modern startup would envy. They already had a loyal customer base right at their doorstep. Jozo Wider's ski resort functioned as a massive marketing funnel. Visitors came to ski, but when they left, they carried a piece of the mountain with them, a teal-colored ceramic item. But Jozo did not stop there. He understood that to become an empire, BMP had to break free from the label of a local souvenir. He began pushing the products into mainstream retail channels. From a small workshop beneath the lodge, BMP expanded into department stores, then appeared in international airports. A perfect growth loop took shape. Profits from ceramics were reinvested to expand the resort, and the more famous the resort became, the more ceramics they sold. By the mid-1960s, Blue Mountain Pottery had reached a rare position: cultural dominance. It became a national gift. If you attended a wedding, a housewarming, or a celebration in Canada, at that time the probability of seeing BMP's signature blue was nearly 100%. Recognition did not stop at commerce. Their products began to be displayed at the Royal Ontario Museum and were even featured on postage stamps. BMP succeeded in redefining the aesthetic of the emerging middle class. Owning a BMP piece was not just about owning ceramics. It was a statement of stability, modern taste, and pride in made-in-Canada products. In 1968 marked a pivotal milestone. Jozo Wider decided to sell the company to focus entirely on the ski resort, but by this point, the BMP ship was already running on its own, with the speed of an Olympic athlete. This is the mini-climax of the story. The factory in Collingwood reached maximum capacity, 14,000 pieces coming out of the kiln each day. 175 workers operated in 3 continuous shifts to meet orders from more than 30 countries. Blue Mountain Pottery had officially become an empire. But it was at this very peak that a dangerous paradox began to emerge. When a product is everywhere, from the display cabinets of upper-class ladies to the kitchen shelves of ordinary families, it begins to lose its exclusivity. Overexposure was quietly paving the way for a shadow that no manager ever wants to face: saturation and obsolescence. Every empire has a common enemy it cannot defeat: time. But for Blue Mountain Pottery, that enemy had another face as well: generational change. For 2 decades, BMP's teal color was a symbol of elegance to the baby boomer generation. But when their children, the Generation X and Millennials, began moving out on their own, they saw their parents' ceramic pieces through a completely different lens. They did not see heritage, they saw heaviness. They did not see art, they saw dust collectors taking up space in modern living environments that were increasingly moving toward minimalism. What defines you can also be what imprisons you. Blue Mountain Pottery did too good a job positioning its brand with its signature teal color, to the point that when market tastes shifted toward neutral or pastel tones, BMP was almost paralyzed. They tried switching to a red glaze, harvest gold, or a wood brown tone, mocha, but customers simply did not accept it. In the public's mind, if it's not blue, it's not Blue Mountain. BMP had unintentionally built a prison it could not move forward because the shadow of its past was too large. Instead of redefining the brand to align with a new lifestyle, BMP's leadership chose to refine. They believed that adding a few new designs or slightly changing the color palette would be enough to win customers back. They were wrong. They failed to realize that the problem was not about color, but about a value system. While the world was shifting from owning decorative objects to experiencing living spaces, BMP remained committed to a philosophy of producing tens of thousands of decorative items every day. The factory in Collingwood continued to run smoothly. The machines kept humming, but the cash flow began to dry up. The cracks were no longer invisible. They started to show clearly in the growing piles of unsold inventory. The empire still stood, but its cultural foundation had completely collapsed. While BMP was still struggling to convince customers that its blue color was still fashionable, a more formidable force was quietly taking shape behind the doors of politics. The emergence of the Free Trade Agreement in 1989, followed by NAFTA in 1994, removed the final protective barriers. Canada was no longer a safe haven for domestic manufacturers. Suddenly, the kilns in Collingwood were forced to face competitors from places where labor costs were only a fraction of their own. Blue Mountain Pottery was not just fighting consumer taste, it was fighting a new economic order. Globalization was not the one that directly killed BMP. It merely accelerated the mistakes that were already there. BMP's system was built on pride in local labor and handcrafted processes in Canada. But in a world where tariff barriers disappeared, that pride became a financial burden. The energy costs of operating massive kilns in Ontario and rising minimum wages pushed product prices to a luxury level compared to the actual value perceived by customers. When consumers walked into Walmart or Target, they chose the cheap prices and diverse designs of imported goods instead of the durability but monotony of local blue ceramics. The final blow to the system did not come from the factory, but from the shelves. BMP had relied on a network of small souvenir shops and traditional department stores, but the era of big-box retail swept those stores away. Walmart and retail giants did not need products with a unique fingerprint or stories about refugees. They needed uniformity, massive volume, and extremely low costs to optimize shelf space. BMP, with its system of handcrafted production at an industrial scale, was caught in the middle, too large to be a specialized premium brand, yet too small and too expensive to compete with the flood of goods from China. The empire that once dominated 30 countries now found itself a stranger in its own home. When a system is hollowed out from within and attacked from the outside, death does not come as a single event. It becomes a brutal countdown. Step 1. The betrayal of taste. In the late 1990s, BMP's warehouses were filled with unsellable blue ceramic vases. Their target customers, the baby boomer generation, began retiring and downsizing their living spaces, while younger generations saw BMP as grandma's old stuff. Step 2. The collapse of the tariff wall. Canada reduced import tariffs on ceramics to nearly zero. BMP lost its final shield. Step 3. The China surge. In 2001, China joined the World Trade Organization. A flood of cheap, diverse, and visually appealing ceramic products poured onto store shelves. BMP was no longer the only choice, no longer even the second choice. Step 4. The pandemic and the freeze. In 2003, the SARS outbreak hit Ontario. The tourism industry, the lifeblood that supplied customers to souvenir shops, was paralyzed. Blue Mountain Pottery, already weakened, lost its final breaths of oxygen. Step 5. The collapse of the traditional retail system. As gift shop chains went bankrupt one after another, BMP's distribution channels were effectively cut off. They still had products, they still had a factory, but they no longer had anywhere to place them on shelves. At the office in Collingwood, Robert Blair, the man in charge during the final phase, looked at the balance sheet. The numbers no longer lied. The cost of operating a massive factory in Canada had far exceeded the profits from the few remaining orders. The death of an industrial empire is not just numbers on paper, it is the collapse of a community. In Collingwood, the BMP family were not just co-workers, they were the people who had shaped the identity of the town together. Workers who had spent 30 or 40 years of their lives beside the kilns, who were accustomed to the smell of clay and the heat of flowing glaze, now faced a brutal reality. Their skills no longer had value in the new economy. When the final kiln went cold, a part of Collingwood's soul went cold with it. The collapse happened quickly, but the pain it left behind would last for decades. The empire had fallen, but before it disappeared completely, it still had one final chapter, an extreme act to protect its last sense of dignity. In the final days of December 2004, Robert Blair made a decision that shocked the entire ceramics industry. He ordered the destruction of all Blue Mountain Pottery molds. This was not a desperate act of madness. It was a painful strategy to protect the legacy. Blair knew that if he sold these molds to companies in Asia or other low-cost pottery workshops, the name Blue Mountain Pottery would continue to live on, but as inferior copies, made from cheap clay and lifeless glaze. He would rather let the brand die with honor than see it turned into a cheap market commodity. If we cannot do it right, then no one is allowed to do it anymore. That was the unspoken message Robert Blair left for the world. The act of smashing the molds was a declaration of uniqueness. It turned the millions of pieces sitting in homes around the world into final editions, with no possibility of reproduction. From a systems perspective, this was Blair's way of cutting off the cycle of decline. He chose a cold and decisive ending, allowing Blue Mountain Pottery to forever remain at the standard that Jozo Waiter had set more than half a century earlier. The empire had died, but by destroying the very tools that created it, Robert Blair inadvertently transformed those dust-collecting ceramics into treasures of the past. The climax of the collapse was not bankruptcy. It was an act of self-destruction to preserve the dignity of a national symbol. As the final molds shattered, Collingwood also began a major transformation. For decades, the town had lived by the breath of factory smokestacks and the noise of trucks carrying ceramics. But today, if you stand where the Blue Mountain Pottery Factory once stood, you will find no trace of clay or kilns. Instead, there is a bustling commercial center, luxury condominiums, and expansive parks. Collingwood has undergone a remarkable shift, from a hub of heavy industrial manufacturing to a paradise of tourism and services. The pottery workers of the past have given way to visitors seeking relaxation. A world without the sound of machines, a world defined by the quiet of service. The collapse of BMP is a classic example of a major shift in the North American economy, from products to experiences. Jozo Waiter, the visionary founder, may have sensed this early on when he decided to sell the pottery factory to focus entirely on the ski resort. He understood that people might stop buying blue ceramic vases when they became outdated, but they would never stop buying the thrill of racing down a snowy slope or the relaxation of enjoying a vacation. BMP did not die because it was bad, but because it represented a material economic model that was gradually being replaced by an experience economy. Today, Collingwood is wealthier than ever, but it is a different kind of wealth. Real estate prices have surged, and high-end services have sprung up everywhere, but the cost has been the complete disappearance of the skilled working class, the people who were once the backbone of the community. The system has adjusted itself to survive. It has eliminated outdated entities like ceramic factories to make way for faster-moving flows of capital. Collingwood is no longer a place to make something, but a place to enjoy something. This is a harsh reality of globalization. Old industrial towns are forced to choose between changing their identity to survive or fading away along with their old values. The ceramics empire has completely faded from the surface, but in the world of those who cherish the past, something strange has begun to rise. Value does not disappear, it only changes form. Blue Mountain Pottery is undergoing an aesthetic revival. People are beginning to realize that what was considered outdated 20 years ago is now timeless today. These mysterious blue ceramic pieces are no longer placed beside worn carpets, but instead have become refined accents in minimalist apartments. They represent an era when people still had the patience to wait for glaze to flow in the kiln, rather than pressing a button to place an order on Amazon. The truth is, you may be owning a piece of this empire without even realizing it. Take a closer look at your grandmother's display cabinet, or the vases forgotten in the attic. Those items with the signature teal color are not just memories. They are evidence of a golden era of Canadian industry, a legacy of refugees who turned mud into a symbol. And sometimes, they are a valuable investment that you have unknowingly overlooked for decades. Blue Mountain Pottery was not the only victim of change. When we look at industrial history, we see a recurring pattern. From Bata shoes that once dominated the market to the once famous shipyards along Georgian Bay. BMP is just one chapter in a thick book about the decline of domestic manufacturing in North America. We are living in an era where everything can be replaced, where loyalty to a brand or a way of life has become a luxury and an outdated one. There is a harsh truth we often avoid when looking at industrial ruins. We did not lose these empires because they were bad. We lost them because we changed. Blue Mountain Pottery's system functioned perfectly until it no longer fit the way we live, the way we shop, and the way we define value. We crave the convenience of Amazon, the cheapness of imported goods, and the constant innovation of technology. And the price of that convenience is the disappearance of things made to last longer than a single trend cycle. We traded the soul of clay for the shine of plastic. Nicholas Cove of Airfix, or Jozo Whiter of Blue Mountain Pottery, built empires from nothing, driven by survival instinct and a belief in tangible values. Their factories may have been dismantled, their molds may have shattered, but those teal ceramic pieces still remain quiet and proud in your display cabinet. They remind us that no matter how systems collapse, no matter how fast the world changes, things shaped with dedication and dignity will always find a way to endure, not as products, but as legacy. Blue Mountain Pottery chose to destroy its final molds to protect its dignity, but its legacy did not disappear. It still exists somewhere in basements, on forgotten shelves across Canada and around the world. Take a look at your family's shelves tonight. Do you find that signature teal color at the bottom of a vase? And if you do, does that piece carry a story tied to the memories of your parents or grandparents? Share it with us in the comments below. Your stories are the final pieces that complete the picture of this empire. If you value in-depth analytical storytelling and want to join me in uncovering more autopsies of once great industrial empires, give this video a like and hit subscribe. Your support not only helps the algorithm bring these historical insights to more people, but also motivates our team to keep digging into archives that are slowly being covered by the dust of time. Don't forget to share this video with a friend who also appreciates nostalgia like you do. Thank you for listening. See you in the next autopsy.